Okay, leave me alone, chat. Come on, focus. What is this? Self-inserts are killing your favorite characters.
We're always talking about the ruin.
I'm not gonna say it.
Of franchises and Hollywood in general, but one of the biggest scourges plaguing Hollywood is, of course, the villain known as the self-insert. Hey, Snarky J cosplay here. Everyone.
Holy guacamole. Holy schmuckamole. I mean this in the most respectful way possible. God damn!
Once in a while, when we talk about the things ruining our favorite franchises, and we take to the internet to about characters that we don't like, one of the phrases that we throw around quite frequently and that we happen to see more and more often in Hollywood is the self-insert. Now you might be sitting there wondering, what exactly is a self-insert? Because I hear it all the time and I'm too afraid to ask. Well, wonder no.
The original word for that was a Mary Sue. Yeah, I'd say Mary Sue is probably the closer thing, that original term used. Yeah.
No more. A self-insert is essentially when a writer projects their politics, their personality, their personal viewpoint, their sexuality, their personal struggles, or any number of things directly onto a character. So the character becomes less of a character in and of themselves within the piece of content, and instead turns into an almost too direct representation of the writer themselves. Now,
Nethanos from World of Warcraft turned into a Mary Sue insert. And everybody noticed it immediately because the character was a massive simp for Sylvanas, and it turns out that the guy that wrote that character was a massive self-insert enjoyer.
Admittedly, not every writer insert is bad. There are a lot of writer inserts that have made for interesting characters. As it is, we like to write and talk about our own experiences.
But you have to be a good writer, and most of the time if you do self-inserts, you can't do that.
If we can write what we know and write a better character out of it, it doesn't mean that every self-insert is bad. Unfortunately, it does mean that a large percentage of self-inserts are bad because they're done lazily, egotistically, and way too often at the expense of the greater story being told. And I mean, audiences aren't stupid, right? 90% of the time where we're listening to a self-insert on behalf of a writer, we pretty much are savvy enough to realize, yeah, this is definitely a self-insert and not necessarily a character that should be here. Like I said, not every self-insert is bad, but most self-inserts, at least in the modern era, are done for a number of different reasons. I have a message I need to say, I have an agenda I need to drive, I need people to know more about me. And when you think about the reasons why we make content, to educate, to entertain, or to inform, I have something I need to get off my chest does not necessarily fit in with any of those, and therefore doesn't justify a good piece of content. And it might not seem like self-inserts are as big a problem as they are, but they're actually pretty prevalent across a number of different media going on right now. And
I think that there's a big symptom of mental illness and wanting to justify and propagate your own message in a not so subtle way because you don't feel like the need to even be subtle about it because people are like so self-centered at this point.
I felt just,
I've been
thinking about this for so long that I really had to buckle down and make this video because, to be honest, as somebody who has written a lot of self-insert fan fiction, yes, I was one of those people on Tumblr.
But you were probably like under 18 years old. I feel like she shouldn't have to justify or fault herself for that because when you're under 18 or even like at a certain age, you can't help yourself, man.
Why do you think I'm like this now? I eventually grew out of it and realized that if I was going to write a piece of content, a story, or what have you, it didn't necessarily have to represent me entirely. Yeah! Unfortunately, a lot of people managed to get to Hollywood and did not figure that out. And the first case we're going to talk about is everybody in the writer's room over at my beloved Disney Plus show that I miss every day. I think you guys know which one I'm talking about, She-Hulk. The writers
Please don't talk about the twerking scene. I've talked about it enough, please.
Of this show openly admitted that Jennifer Walters, otherwise known as She-Hulk, was pretty much based in entirely on themselves. And while that would have worked had these people had some fun, interesting messages like what She-Hulk once had within her own comic series,
yeah, what's wrong with this? This is cute.
it might have worked. But
yeah, wait, this is actually real? This is like canonical? That's kind of cute.
But being that they were a bunch of 30-somethings looking to complain about their love
Millennial Karens, brother.
lives, it made for a show almost as frustrating as my actual love life. See, the problem with a character like She-Hulk is, yeah, you can have a character that is a frustrated 30-something-year-old woman with a challenging love life, and if all of that was done well, then it would have been a good show. She-Hulk is an admittedly fun character, and I don't think that their original idea was that far off of what she was in the comics. Unfortunately, they decided to insert too much of themselves, and what happened with that is that everybody in that writer's room walked in with a chip on their shoulder.
And also a bunch of people are writing for one character, and that's the problem as well. Everybody's tearing at the seams to insert themselves into a character, and it very much doesn't seem like a cohesive piece of like a character.
A story about some man who wasn't fun at dinner, some dating app that they loathe, some best friend whose wedding they went to and regretted it. It was a number of different self-insert stories. And
was that in the original or what? Did you see Velma? No, I don't subject myself to fucking torture.
so what happens is that the normally fun-loving, zesty, almost Deadpool-like Jennifer Walters ends up coming across as shallow, petty, smug, and bitter, all of which are personality traits that I wouldn't and don't even like in male characters, which is probably why I didn't like it in a female character.
But if you don't like it in a female character, you're a bigot and you hate women. Wah. You're not allowed to criticize it. Wah. That's why I hate that. I hate talking about this because like I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but at the same time, you have to push back on this shit because I'm sick of people being like, oh my god, there's a woman on the screen, it's gonna be bad. It's like, sometimes it's not actually bad, but the first impression is always the worst because people have been fucked over so many times.
It wasn't internalized misogyny as some of the shills claimed it to be. It was a poorly written show based entirely on self-insert fanfiction.
Yes.
I mean, they literally decided to serve up a superhero courtroom drama where the story arcs revolved entirely around her love life woes and they were condescending as shit to every male character in the show. So
as if people that, like, you know, as if people that, sorry, my brain's not working right now. As if the people that they're catering to aren't a large majority of men that like comic books and superheroes. Like, yeah, there are women that like comic books and superheroes, but the main demographic is men. Like, what?
Wasn't even close to superhero storytelling. It was just people that needed to complain. And to me, it was just puzzling because if they wanted to vent about their love life so badly, I understand, but I don't.
But they don't want to make an original piece of shit because it's not gonna do well, so they self-insert themselves into popular media, hoping that nobody notices it because it has like a brand behind it, you know, like the Hulk or whatever.
I think She-Hulk was the place to do it. Moving on to another equally beloved self-insert, let's move on to Mindy Kaling's Velma. See, initially, a lot of complaints about Velma in the new series was that she didn't exactly look like the Velma that we're all used to.
Yeah, you don't say. I thought Velma was white.
But things got even worse when the series actually came out. Mindy Kaling is a prolific and accomplished writer. To say otherwise...
Wait! She was in The Office! I liked her character because she was so obnoxiously, like, unfunny. Yeah. Can we skip this one, Alana? No, we're watching the whole thing.
Would be to completely negate her talent. Unfortunately, when you kind of do the same thing over and over and make sure that you have to insert your exact tastes and your personality and your sense of humor and your life experiences, then you basically become the one-trick pony of self-inserts as opposed to somebody who gets admired for their writing prowess. A lot of fans tended to feel like Velma was basically just the Mindy Project 2.0, and all she was doing was projecting her own quirks, humor, and personal takes on a beloved character, which is not how you're supposed to write people that
What's with the race swapping? I don't get it. This is so weird.
already exist. If you want to make a cartoon thing about your own life and being your own person, make your own cartoon. Don't take
No, because it's not gonna do well. We're gonna try and bounce off of an IP.
over one that has a history, what, 30, 40 years strong at this point? I mean, almost everything written into that show basically just feels like writer ego on display. Velma's entire arc feels preachy, inorganic, and like it was done with absolutely no love or respect for the characters that the entire show is based on. And
well, yeah, they didn't watch it and they just did whatever the fuck they want. People have openly admitted to this. Like, there's a reboot of Harry Potter, and the guy that's writing it said, I never read the books, I'm not planning to, I'm just gonna do whatever the fuck I want. And this is why we have problems like this happening.
That's the entire point, is that as a writer, when you're writing things, if your personality is overshadowing that of the character, if you have a set of established motivations or even a personality like we had with Velma, when your own starts to overtake the character, you're not serving the content. And that's why so much of the shit that we have to sit through today sucks.
It's so egotistical. I can't stand it. Why do we even have reboots at this point? Oh, I know why, because people want money. Yeah, even if you drive an IP to the ground and you destroy it and basically make people not trust you anymore, it's like, oh, well, I don't care.
Of things that have
it's not my problem.
Quality. It's not exactly confirmed, but I have an inkling that one of the reasons why we keep getting Rey No Name Palpatine Skywalker shoved down our throats when it comes to Star Wars is because she is a self-insert for our beloved Kathleen Kennedy. When we
put a chicken in to make her gay!
Consider the idea of a brunette girl boss pushing her way through a challenging narrative, besting and overshadowing every single man she encounters, even when they arguably should be better at what they do than she is.
I have no issue with a woman beating a man up in a fantasy world. I just want it to be at least semi-realistic. The fact that she was just amazing at everything from the get-go and beat up Kylo Ren, who, like, he's a far, like, he was actually, like, you know, learning shit, and yeah, it has to be earned. Yeah, she immediately knows how to use the Force. She shits all over the legacy of, like, everyone that came before her. And she's like, oh my god, I'm breaking the rules. It's like, what the fuck, man? At this point, Red should have won? Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, I'm not gonna go into the details of the plot, but, like, it's just so weird.
How quickly doesn't she pick Kylo Ren's ass? And the guy had been training in this in years. She just picked up a lightsaber yesterday. God, the sequel trilogy is terrible. It could be a metaphor for how Kathleen Kennedy pushed her way past being a personal assistant to eventually.
I didn't know about this part. What the fuck? She was a PA. And now she's like, what, like the CEO or the... She's like, what's her fucking title again? She retired, but she's like, not really. Kathleen Kennedy. She's the president of Lucasfilms. How the fuck does that happen? Hello?
Essentially getting producer credits on a lot of different and well-rated movies, and basically being at the helm of everything that has a Star Wars.
I don't want to stereotype, but how many people did she blow to get to the top? Like, this is like Nepo baby-like moment, except like with, you know, blowing.
Label on it. And the problem with a self-insert like Rey, besides...
By the way, I would absolutely say this about a man as well. Like, how much dick have you sucked to get to the top if you were just a personal assistant? I'm I'm all for showing that you do good jobs. Like, maybe you're a PA or you have a lower position and you finally get your breakthrough by showing that you deserve it. But, like, what did Kathleen Kennedy, like, actually do? How is this trilogy even remotely, like, good enough for her not to get sacked?
Everything about Rey is that when the writer or the producer, director, whatever, is that attached to the character, then they're way less likely to listen to criticisms from fans, especially criticisms that make sense. They basically just want to go, here, this one is me. Shut up, take it, buy the action figure, buy the costume for your kids, put a poster up of her, buy a cardboard cutout, shut the f up, what do you mean she's not the best thing since sliced bread? They literally refuse to hear any feedback from the fan base, even when
because what they were gonna say if they have any criticism is that you're wrong and you're sexist. I don't give a shit. I like Lara Croft. I like the chick in Resident Evil of whatever her name is. Fucking the one played by Mila, fucking what's her face, Abramovich or some shit. I liked her as a character. Yeah, Jill? Was it Jill? I don't know. I'm a tourist, but like anyway. Jovovich? Oh, Jovovich, yeah. Yeah, I liked her character. She was a girl boss. And even then, she was kind of like a Mary Sue because she was just really good at fighting from the get-go. But it was good, because nobody cared.
Figures are left rotting on shelves and the sabers don't sell as well, and people are still clamoring for the original trilogy in the theme parks, but all they want to give you is Rey No-Name Palpatine Skywalker and her beach ball of a droid. You know, that's their character, so they're not gonna let go, and they're just gonna buckle down on something that makes no sense. I have another example, which is actually my self-insert into this video. This is the thing that I've been nitpicking about for years, and it's actually what inspired this video. I know you probably think that I was more pissed off about She-Hulk than anything else, but I'm gonna explain to you exactly what kind of person I am. I am still holding a grudge about an animated children's movie that first was released in 2006.
I love it when women are passionate.
I'm gonna talk to you about Cars 3. How
Wait. She's actually losing it over Cars? Wait, that's so based?
Lightning McQueen's entire character arc was single-handedly destroyed by John Lasseter being pushed out of Pixar by younger, more talented people. Maybe more talented is not the word for it, but with less allegations. If you're not an adult with an odd attachment to the Cars franchise,
that's a lot of my chat, dude.
Probably won't make much sense to you without a little bit of context, so let me explain. In 2006, rookie Lightning McQueen ends up in Radiator Springs, goes on this whole journey of friendship. Yay! If you know anything about the Cars lore, we basically know that he ends up becoming a 7-time Piston Cup champion, probably inspired by people like Richard Petty and Jimmy Johnson from NASCAR. And in Cars 3, a movie made for children who want to watch the cool car say ka-chow and drive around in circles. In Cars 3, he is an aging race car being pushed out of his career by an all-new, technologically advanced, better, faster generation. He has this big crash at the beginning of the movie that was traumatizing to kids everywhere. No! I wasn't young enough to be traumatized by that movie, and I didn't watch it until years after it came out, because Cars 2 was that bad. That is exactly what that crash is a metaphor for. The second Cars was basically Larry the Cable Guy as Mater having some really convoluted, terrible spy adventure around the world. It was stupid for adults to follow. Kids weren't really a big fan of it. It is the worst rated Pixar movie on Rotten Tomatoes. Yep. It's actually the only one to have a pure
Cars 2 was fun. No, it was fun, but the plot didn't make any fucking sense.
Score. And so at the beginning of Cars 3, we have this tremendous crash and then the need to build Lightning McQueen back up. If that isn't a metaphor for Pixar having to build the Cars franchise back up after the disaster that was Cars 2, I don't know what is. Cars 3 is basically John Lasseter's healing sequel. The entire film is just people making old man jokes at a Lightning McQueen that fails at literally everything he tries because he's being single-handedly bested by his trainer with an appropriately diverse name, Cruz Ramirez. And I'm
Do they think that people that take their kids don't notice how condescending and weird this whole plotline is? Who the fuck takes kids? Who's taking their kids? Dads and moms, I would hope. Grandpas and grandmas. Why would you ever do this to a character?
Pronouncing it in English, because if I said one name in Spanish, both names would have to be in Spanish, and it just sounded annoying, but they just wanted to make sure that it sounded super diverse.
Latinx.
Whether you called her by her first name or last name. Both of these are Hispanic surnames, none of which sound as cool as Lightning or McQueen. Ka-chow. Anyway, the entire time the industry and crews are single-handedly like pushing him out of his own industry, which basically mirrors exactly what John Lasseter was going through.
They pushed out the guy that made Toy Story? Oh my god, dude. No wonder he had a monumental crash out and made Cars 2 and 3. Or sorry, 2.
At Pixar, aging leadership,
that's
pressure
fucking
to make way for new talent and shifts in animation and style and also messaging. It makes for an emotional enough story, sure, but it also feels way more like Pixar holding up a mirror to themselves as opposed to a film that was made to round out the trilogy of one of Pixar's most iconic characters ever. So think about it this way, was the story serving the character, or was Lightning McQueen just the vehicle serving the studio? And I mean vehicle, I guess, both literally and figuratively. And maybe I'm taking it too personally, because I do...
He got me too. I know, but, like, you could make a good story out of, like... I just don't get it. How do you shit all over a legacy like Cars? Like, every single person. I remember when I was a bit older, right? Like, I took some people's, like... You know, I had friends with younger siblings, and we took them to Cars and Cars 2. I didn't even know Cars 3 was a thing. And they just took a big fat dump all over it and just shit on it.
Own so many Lightning McQueens that is actually one of my favorite movies of all time, and I did cosplay him, but I'm gonna be salty about Cars 3 for the rest of my life. John Lasseter, why couldn't you just leave him alone?
Leave him alone!
Okay, now I got all the lightning out of my system. So, when we look at these self-inserts, they are so often used to round out content that we get today in the wrong way. And I'm gonna finish with one more example that I feel like isn't a problem right now because the movie isn't out yet, but I want you to not attach yourself too closely to the movie itself and just think about the message of what I'm saying. James Gunn's Superman is set to
oh no.
Release at the time of this video's recording, like a month from now, less than a month from now. And of course, we have crypto in this movie. And I've already gotten so much flack for my opinions on crypto. Again, I love dogs. I have a ratty ass dog. He's a chihuahua that looks like a hyena. I love him so much. But I grew up watching Crypto the Super Dog, and I remember Crypto being this big, like, lab-type dog.
Yeah!
He looked super noble. And then in this...
Yeah, in this movie, it's like a shaggy little rat. It's like, come on.
They get what looks like some kind of rat terrier. I'm not saying he's not cute. I'm just saying he doesn't exactly look like, you know, a Kryptonian super dog. James Gunn, whom I'm honestly still questioning why they gave him the keys to the kingdom with such abhorrent tweets about all kinds of things that I'm not even gonna...
The Expendables is so manly. Something out of the little... 2010? I'm doing a big Hollywood film adaptation of The Giving Tree with a happy ending. The tree grows back... I can't read this out loud. I actually feel... What?
Repeat, you can look at those for yourself.
Is this real? Pubescent... What? What the frick?
He, while in the midst of writing this movie, adopts this misbehaving, formerly abused dog. I think it's great. Adopt, don't shop. He adopts this dog, and the dog is biting his ankles while he's trying...
Dude, I get canceled for less in this day and age, and this guy just gets to keep his job in Hollywood. It's kind of crazy.
To write this movie, to the point that he has to sit on his counter to avoid being attacked by this dog. And so he decides that this is what he's gonna base Superman's dog on. This is what Crypto the Super Dog is based on. And everybody's coming at me, oh yeah, but the dog isn't his, that's why it doesn't behave. That's actually Kara, Supergirl's dog. That's his cousin's dog. That's why he doesn't listen to him. I don't give a shit. You cannot explain choices made by a director or writer with lore that they made up. Like, none of this is real. So when you tell me, well, yeah, but he explained it right, but he made the choice and then he made lore to back it up. You see how that works?
Yeah.
So then people are like, well, the dog's not even that big a part of the movie.
Well, they try to bend the rules, but it makes no fucking sense. People don't really... Again, there is absolutely an extreme fan base that will nitpick you no matter what. But the general audience, I think, is the best way to listen to a fan base. You of course have to listen to the extreme people too, because that's how you get the gauge. You get the gauge for what it is you are pushing if it's too much. If too much of the audience in the public doesn't like it, push it back towards the original. It's not that fucking hard.
Right? I don't know, it kind of looks like it's everywhere. The popcorn buckets for this movie are a dog bowl and the dog. Like, I feel like the entire purpose of this dog was for James Gunn to go, look, it reminds me of my dog, also buy the f***ing toy. And so my concern...
Yeah, I don't get it. I mean, I don't... You know what's sad is, like, I wrote, like, things when I was like 13 years old, and obviously you're gonna self-insert yourself and be fucking cringe. I don't see how you can be an adult and not have any self-awareness. I feel like that's like kind of like a litmus test for your IQ at this point. You write a character and you absolutely self-insert yourself to the point that the audience and the critics notice. Like, what? How?
Again, I haven't seen the movie, so I'm not writing it off. I'm not saying the dog is going to destroy the movie, but my concern is the dog a meaningful character? Or is it a quirky pet gag that basically gets shoehorned in for James Gunn's own self-indulgence?
Yeah,
Is
obviously.
this him writing a dog that's really going to be fun and representative of what crypto is in the comics and in the cartoons? Or is this just James Gunn going, haha, he's like my dog. See? Isn't it great? Superman doesn't need to be and shouldn't be what Zack Snyder wrote him to be, which was brooding on almost Batman-type levels. And yeah, okay, Superman has emotions, but I just don't think we should ever go that completely dark, especially not in like a first solo movie and all that. I'm not even going to get into all that now. But the point is, Superman is about hope and strength and legacy and integrity. I think
it's millennial writing. What will you expect? That's not true, because Kathleen Kennedy is not a millennial. She's a fucking boomed out, like, borderline boomer. She's like Gen X. That's what I was saying. Like, I think it's just bad writing in general because these people are fucking nepotistic as fuck.
Inserting a terrier that's this chaotic and this scrappy kind of feels like tonal imbalance that James Gunn just put in because he's cute. I could speak as to so many more self-inserts, but I think you get the point. Self-inserts basically flatten more complex characters, and they also take away time and space from characters that could otherwise shine.
And otherwise, as well, you have to also consider how it really rips your immersion. For me personally, like, again, I keep bringing up the whole Nathanos versus Sylvanas thing. When I realized that Sylvanas and Nathanos in World of Warcraft started being self-inserts, I stopped giving a fuck about the general fucking story. Genuinely. Once you start, like, if you can just be playing a game and realize that you're not just playing a game, you're listening to a story made by a fucking person that doesn't actually care about the game and they just want to, like, have their own fantasy, you immediately just, like, are like, I'm done. Again, self-inserts like Thrall, for example, in World of Warcraft, it's an obvious self-insert of Chris Benson, but at the end of the day, it's not a bad character. I think it's kind of endearing.
If they weren't being deprioritized by a writer who just really needed the spotlight. When a character is a self-insert and it's so intrinsically tied to the personal experiences and traits of a writer that we don't know, we as the audience are never going to meet or never going to really understand this person, then basically we lose out on connecting to this character for the sake of this writer experiencing some sort of personal catharsis. I think,
again, egotistic fucking game devs and writers. Nobody wants to fucking do that. Just write a good character that's relatable. Like, I watched a bunch of interviews of George R.R. Martin, and he said one of the most rewarding things about a character that he was writing was Tyrion. And even though he's not a little person, he said that writing a humorous character was very cathartic. And it's like I keep saying this, but like it's really a litmus test for IQ and emotional empathy. Like, what are you doing, man?
If you're writing a character, I think for Hollywood, it's okay
as
to
fuck.
make a character that is personally relatable. And I think as human beings, characters that are at least a little personally relatable to the writers will probably be at least somewhat personally relatable to us. But when the writer makes that character a direct representation or mirror of themselves, then honestly, sometimes the character is f***ing insufferable. Or just unrelatable because they are so...
Because the person is fucking insufferable. You can't even fake being a relatable, well-rounded character that's just nice.
Tied to one super specific set of circumstances. If we take a step back and we think about classic characters like Superman, like Batman, like Spider-Man, like Luke Skywalker, characters like these were compelling because they were crafted for the story, they were crafted for the audience at large, and they were crafted to support a major narrative. They are a player in a world that's being built. They weren't crafted in and for the writer's self-image. So what's my point? Well,
and when they break character, for example, well, not even break character, but you have to advance the plot, and it somehow turns them evil, it makes it even more unbelievable. It's just like, ew, what are you doing, man? And then people get so upset over... And that's another thing. People get really, really upset when people don't like their self-insert character and they start blaming their fans. I've seen it happen so many fucking times where the fandom or, like, people who criticize their work get upset and say this is dog shit, and because they can't separate themselves from the character itself, they get really, really offended. And they're like, oh, well, you're just a fucking bigot. It's like, no, man. No, it's just because it's bad. I don't hate you as a person because I hate this character.
Unfortunately, when self-inserts are prioritized and put at the helms of our stories, when writers, essentially, are prioritizing their own egos over producing a good quality story for the audience is the one that loses. For truly great storytelling, which I feel like is almost entirely a bygone era at this point, writers need to get back to writing characters that serve a greater purpose in a greater world that they themselves can build. These characters have to serve a real purpose to the audience, not to the writers themselves. Characters do not need to be you, Hollywood. They just need to be real. And that's all from me.
They can be you. It's just like, ugh. What's a really good example of that, man? I would honestly probably just say Geralt of Rivia is a exceptional character with superpowers. Literally, like, superpowers that are supernatural, and they can get him out of almost any situation. But you still have relatability, even though he's callous and harsh and brooding, and he's still a kind of a bitch, and he has other characters keeping him in check with, like, humanity and relationships that make him relatable, despite all of the things that he does and what he became to be a Witcher. Yeah, he still has struggles. He doesn't understand his emotions. He doesn't really have emotions sometimes. And people scold him for it. And I think that's, like, part of the reason why people like him so much.
I've been Snarky J. Thank you so much for watching. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. For more Snarky J, be sure to check me out on Instagram. And if you'd like to support me, this channel, and my content creation, do check out and consider subscribing to my Patreon for exclusive photo shoot sets and cosplay content. I'll add links to all of those in the description below. And let me know a piece of content that you think was ruined by a self-insert in the comments below.
So many. I've lost count. Lilo and Stitch, actually, right here. That's a really good example. Oh my god, I'm gonna girl boss myself to California. Yes, bitch. Yes! So many. World of Warcraft. That's the biggest one for me. Ugh. DMC. Oh my god. No. No, the demons are actually misunderstood.